The Marino Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Marino Show. I'm your host, David Marino, and today we're talking to a familiar face. I call him a friend of the show. Lottie Loetta is the creative director and producer for Testify ATX. Lottie, thank you for being with me today.
I'm so excited to be here.
I love talking to you because you're always so happy, uplifting, and I love what you do at Testify ATX. The last time we talked to you about Testify, you were just about to go back to in-person shows, and you have since done that earlier in the year.
In fact, when we talked the first time, we were supposed to go back and we had to postpone it a month.
Right. Yeah. So now that you've been back in action, for those who don't know about what Testify is, explain Testify to the audience.
Testify is a live storytelling show where people tell stories from their lives. It is their stories. We curate it, which means that we actually work with them on the nature of their stories. We help them build their stories, so it's a cohesive unit, but the stories belong to the people telling them.
Now, you all started earlier this year, and each month that you do a storytelling show, it has a different theme.
Yes.
Coming back after the pandemic and now being in person again and at a new location at Alamo Drafthouse, Mueller, what has it been like being back, in person? And, has anything sort of changed in, I guess, the storytelling? Or because I feel like storytelling is going to be reflective of what's happening during our time. Although I know a lot of the people that do the shows, they're sharing some really personal experiences in their life, right?
They're sharing personal experiences in their life, but we have had a couple of people share personal experiences. Not necessarily because of COVID, but we had one guy who tell a story because of the freeze that we had last year and everything that meant to him and what he had to go through because of that. And I don't think we've had a lot of stories focus on COVID and things like that. And now that I'm thinking about it, we did have one that's an adorable girl named Miranda Haney who told a story about getting some food delivered. What I think live storytelling does, because we did it on Zoom for a while, it's live theater. And I'm aware it's just, it's storytelling, it's just someone telling a story, but it is a performance art. People are telling you something from their lives and it's there and then you're done. That's it. It does not exist forever. The story, well, it exists on YouTube because we record them, but that moment that you're there listening to the story, it is a very fleeting moment. And it's a beautiful thing to watch people open themselves up and make their inner workings available to other people.
And we're going to share some excerpts of some of those storytelling efforts later in the show, which I'm excited about. I know you've also done your own as well, along with the other people that you work with Testify, Mark Gifford and Angela Maldonado, all three of you.
Hasn't told a story yet.
Okay.
And I have. I'm trying to get her. She's busy with other plans right now.
Got it. What are some of the themes that you all have covered so far this year?
Our themes. Our first theme was just like starting over, and that was our theme that was supposed to happen in January. We moved it to February because we wanted that to be the theme of the first show, because really everything is starting over for most of us. It's the first time we finally able to leave our houses. This is the first time we were able to do a live show. We wanted to experience that with the audience and with the people who were telling their stories. But we've also had something, the eye of the storm, and you turn yourself around, dreams. Our next theme coming up is I Was Wrong. And it's all the ways that people can be wrong. And there's lots of them.
Oh, that sounds amazing, because I can think of so many things that I've been wrong at that are hard to admit at times.
We want you to come tell a story too, David.
I know. Every time we interview, we talk about that. I think I'm working my way up to it. I get nervous about it, which that's something we've talked about before too. I mean, the great thing about this is that when people sign on to tell a story or share an experience in their life, they're not just left out there to do it on their own. There's prep before they hit the stage. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we do a lot of prep, and there's other storytelling shows in Austin throughout the world where people have a theme and they invite you, and if you're in, you're in. And I like those storytelling shows too. I've been in those storytelling shows, and they are a lot of fun. What I like about the way we do it is we actually treat it like a show. We treat it like an actual performance. People send us a submission for their story. They send us a video submission. We give them notes on their video. We ask them questions about what does this mean, or what does this mean to you, or why did you say this here, or help them tie things together. Then they do a live run through with the producers, and we give them more notes. And no one to date has ever complained about the notes. In fact, I think it's universally helped everyone find a thread through their story that they don't usually see themselves.
You know, and I've watched several of your the people that have told stories this year, and what I really love about all of them is that, well, one, it's very just conversational. It doesn't feel like, I mean, obviously when you're going to go and hit the stage, you have to know what you're going to say. And so there is going to be some, you know, to yourself rehearsing and knowing what you're going to talk about. But what I really love about what you all do is that it doesn't feel rehearsed. It feels very in the moment. And it's almost like if there was any nervousness with any of the people that are doing these stories, it kind of goes away when they hit the stage. And I love that, because I've really appreciated seeing that. There's a lot of versatility as well. If you want to talk about that, because I think that's really important in our lives, and especially where we are now in society, that it's important that we see different people, hear different experiences. And that's one thing, one of the many good things that you all have done with Testify, is that it really is all encompassing, right? When it comes to sharing the human experience.
Well, I think storytelling is all encompassing, because really our stories are all the same. It's that we want to belong. We want to feel like we belong somewhere. And I think that's common across everybody. So we go out of our way to look for different people that we've not had on stage. We try and reach out to audiences or storytellers that we've not had in the past, because we want to hear as many different points of view coming from different people as possible, because they're not that different. Hey, what's so nice about the stories is, yes, someone's talking about having a dinner delivered. Someone's talking about they drove a tractor. They learned to drive a tractor when they're 8 years old. Someone else is talking about their first job. Someone is talking about a divorce. But it's this need to share and to be seen for who you are and what you've experienced, which is a common denominator for all of us. Everyone just wants to be seen and acknowledge they exist. And that's what storytelling gives these people. And you're right, a lot of them are very nervous. And one of the things that we do at Testify is we tell them, we have the mic, it's set. You are not allowed to pick up the mic. You're not allowed to touch the mic. You're not traveling the stage, because a lot of people do come in nervous, and we don't want them to burn off that nerve just walking up and down the stage, because that is not interesting. We wanted to go ahead and be as nervous as you are and funnel all that nervousness into your story, because that gives it more heart. And the truth of the matter is, it's their story. They know it. So they may go out of their way to remember certain phrases, like the opening phrase, the ending phrase, maybe a couple things in the middle, but it's their story. So all they're basically remembering is the arc and how they want to tell it. So that's why it feels conversational, because it really is.
And you yourself have done many of these in your own life, you know, have hit the stage for different, whether it's telling a story or sharing an experience, but you also teach as well. It's through Merlin, right?
Through Merlin Works. That's an improv school that's been around in Austin for a long time. last year they started storytelling as well. And my friend Paul Normandin, who was the dean at the time, invited me to come and start teaching with him. And it moved beyond that to where I teach my own class now. And I love it. I absolutely love it, because everyone that comes in has their own story to tell. And I love listening to their stories. It's always wonderful hearing what's important to different people. It's just so much fun.
So do you actually teach storytelling? What is it that you're helping them with when it comes?
It is Storytelling 101. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
You're good.
It's Storytelling 101. And we teach people as if they've never told a story before. We tell them the basics of what storytelling is, how it looks, how things have changed over time, and what we teach as storytelling, because there's lots of different ways to tell a story, but we specifically tell personal narrative storytelling, your story that you are telling about yourself. And that's our stories that we teach.
What have you heard from some of the people who've gone through Testify in terms of the experience? I would imagine that sometimes getting up on stage and sharing some of the things that are shared it's a hard thing, one, to share depending on what the subject is, but two, I would also think it's an empowering sort of experience for people. And in some ways, maybe it helps them let go of some things that they maybe have never talked about publicly in that way. Have you ever heard from them? Like, to me, it seems like therapy without having to pay for therapy, because I pay for therapy and I love my therapist. But I feel like this is such a great way to sort of bond together over these types of things that happen to us in our lives, that some are good, some are not, right?
And that's absolutely true. Some of our stories are very just naturally funny stories. Some of them are heartbreaking. And even in watching someone getting their heart broken, you can find a little humor in life, because they do, because they've survived. But that's one of the things we tell people when you're telling a story. There's only one spoiler that's ever allowed, and it's the only spoiler you can't avoid. No matter what you've gone through, obviously you survived it. You're telling the story. That's the only spoiler we allow. Everything else, because people have an idea that they want to tell you what their story's about. They say, oh, this story is about when I was a child and this happened. And we tell people, don't tell us that. Just jump into the story, because that's what immerses people, is jumping into that moment with them. And while I think we get a lot of people that are nervous, because it can be nerve-wracking, I think we, and to toot our own horn, and I'm going to do it, myself, Angela, and Mark, we hold hand these people. We talk to them. We let them know how their stories can be better. We help them get their stories better. And by the time they're on that stage, they are not that they're not nervous, but they're more confident in their ability to tell a story. Getting up in front of a crowd and being personal and open about your life is still nerve-wracking. And there's no way around that for some people. But once they get started, they ease into it, and they realize a Testify audience is there specifically to hear their stories. That's what they want. You don't have to worry about whether these people are interested. They bought tickets because they want to hear from you.
And the shows have been doing really well. I've seen your postings just in terms of ticket sales and people coming out to really support and enjoy, what you're doing. Were you happy to see that, obviously, after not having been in person for a while?
We had no idea what to expect once the show started up again. We had no idea what to expect. We just crossed everything we possibly could, and things turned out pretty well. Now, in the middle of summer, I think it's May, we had a really low month, but we went back and looked at records of all of May since Testify has been in existence. And summer months, the months when summer begins and spring is, those have always been hard on us. So while it was unfortunate, it was not a surprise, and it still was fine. We had a good size audience, and we had plenty of storytellers. But since then, we have been really lucky. We tend to sell out of our online tickets within a week. And we do have tickets that we hold for the door for people who just want to wait till the last minute to come. Why do people do that? I don't know, David. I don't. Just buy your tickets.
So,
but they do. They wait. They come to the door, and that's fine.
yeah. Hey, they're paying for it. That's all
They're
you
paying
need.
for it. That's fine.
Hand me the money. That's great. So Lottie, we have September, October, November left in the year for Testify. September, obviously, that's already ongoing, and those people are chosen. But what are the themes for September, October, November? And if people want to sign up for October and November, how can they go about doing that?
September is the same coin. It's a show we do where two people tell a story about the same situation from their vantage points. And it's kind of fun. And this time we have all husbands and wives. And they're talking about something that happened either at work, something that happened at home, and one couple is talking about when they met each other. And it's kind of interesting to hear the same story from both points of view. October is about ghosts. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be scary ghosts. It could be the ghost of an idea, the ghost of a memory. Whatever you think ghost means to you, that's what our theme is for then. And our last one, which is November 9th, is potluck. Because we have people that don't fit anywhere, and we want to put them on stage anyway. They go into the potluck where you come and you get to hear stories that have no relation to each other whatsoever, except they're happening on the same night.
That's so much fun. And then y'all take December off, right?
Yes, we are closed for December. We take that month to regroup and get ready for January the next year.
So for people who are, apprehensive like myself about telling a story, what is your advice to them? And it's funny because I'm used to talking and getting up in front of people, but I think there's something about, I don't know, sharing I'm not even sure what yet I would share. I have been thinking about it, I promise you. But there's something very vulnerable about it that makes me nervous. That's where my thing is.
No, and we get that. And it is, you are stepping in a vulnerable space. There is no doubt. What we tell people is, even if you're just thinking about it, submit your idea. Because maybe it doesn't go this year. Maybe you don't have anything to worry about. Maybe the show you apply for is full and we don't have room for you this year. Maybe potluck is full and we don't have. Just submit. You don't know what's going to happen. And then if we invite you to the show, you can start freaking out then.
That's very true. Yes, that's very true.
Don't worry about it till that moment. But even at that moment, know that we're on their side. We want them to be comfortable. We want them to have the best experience they can telling the story in front of a crowd. And we will go out of our way to make sure that happens.
Has there anything specifically this year that sort of stuck out to you in any of the stories that you've heard, or an experience with maybe one of the people that you worked with that you've taken away even yourself from doing this?
We have people who apply, just so you're aware. A lot of people are nervous. We have people that do apply and we invite them and they ghost us from that point on. They don't return emails, they don't return messages. And we know at that point that they're just too scared to come in. And we had one person who was dying to tell a story on Testify, absolutely wanted to tell a story. And they wanted to tell a story about traveling because they think traveling is wonderful. Traveling is great. Everyone should travel. You can see so many things. And I was talking to them. I said, well, that's nice. But that's not a story. And they said, but people could travel across the world. They could sail, they could fly, they could do all these sorts of things and see dolphins and whales and all that. And I said, that's still very interesting, but that's not a story. And this went on for about 10 minutes. And I said, well, is there a reason why you waited so late to travel? And that stopped them dead. They said, well, I couldn't travel because of an illness. And I said, well, now this sounds like a story. And it was, but you could see they did not realize that, because we don't understand necessarily what a story is. We relay information to people like bullet points and think that's a story, but that's not. A story inherently involves your reaction to everything that happens. Your whys. Why did you do this? Why do you feel this way? The whys that are important to you are what make the story. And it's so much fun when you see that hit somebody, because you can literally see their eyes sparkle when they go, oh, you mean people want to know about me? And it's a change. It's a flip in their head when now they become the main character in their story.
And now we're going to share some of the storytellers who have graced the stage at Testify so far this year. Take a look.
So back in 2017, before I went to seminary to become a pastor, I worked in software startups doing sales. And I was about a year and some change before I came out as trans. And if you remember what 2017 was, it was the year of the bathroom bill. So I was already having a pretty bad year. And then I got fired from my sales job. And then I had to sublet my apartment because I couldn't afford it anymore. I sold everything I owned, and I traveled around in my car all over the country for a few months. And I wish I could say that I was leaning into my faith during that time, but it was waning pretty heavily. And I wish I could say that, I was lost and found Jesus, but y'all, I think that's a bunch of crap, and I'm not that kind of pastor, okay? So I know that Jesus said that he told the rich man to sell everything he owned and followed him, right? So I can check that off the box that I did that one right. And before Jesus starts his ministry, he does 40 days alone in the wilderness. So before I started seminary, I decided that I would do 40 days alone in the desert of Moab, Utah.
Lola's trying to escape her creepy dad. I'm trying to escape work. Brooke's trying to escape her prude-ass boyfriend. And as this is running through my mind, Lola and Brooke get quiet. And Lola looks at me and she goes, what do you think about me watching you and Brooke have sex? Woo! Did not expect that, right? I mean, because Brooke is giving me Vilma from Scooby-Doo vibes, so this is not what I signed up for, you know what I mean? And so I'm like, dang, man, like, I'm thinking about my background, like, how far have I come? Like, I'm a pastor's kid, like, I got in trouble for premarital hand-holding. This is a whole new ball game. But on the other hand, I'm wearing a leather onesie, so what should I expect? At this moment, it's like I think about that moment and I realize that, like, we're all using the weekend to run away from something. So whether it's a job, whether it's, your daddy issues, whether it's a prude boyfriend, we're all in this together. And so if you're out there and you're running from something, you're trying to use the weekend to get away from something, you're trying to bring the weekend into your weekday and you're struggling, like, just know that I see you and keep protesting. Thank you guys very much.
I come from two very sexually conservative cultures, Vietnamese and Texan. I don't even know how to say vagina in Vietnamese. I've only heard it in the most gentlest of euphemisms, like butterfly or birdie. Whereas in Texas, politicians even debate about reproductive parts openly, constantly. I mean, too much, really. I I was getting a lot of mixed messages. I think I was just so confused at how I was supposed to hate myself that I just didn't. Which is why, at my family's nail salon, I was the only one who could become the Brazilian wax test dummy. The coochie that was promised, you know? My mom's oldest sister, I call her Aunt 3. She opened the first Vietnamese-owned nail salon in Highland Park, Texas. Highland Park is a very white, old money, wealthy neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. That was not her only first. She was also the first one in our family to step foot in America. Yeah, it was a lot. She went through a lot. And I feel like we lived parallel lives, you know, because I was the first one born here, and that neither of us had anybody who could really, like, as much as people wanted to, they couldn't really show us how to make our way.
And I couldn't find her. Every step forward that I took, I felt like Charlie Brown lining up to kick that football, you know, where at the last minute it gets pulled out and you land flat on your back. There I was, flat on my back, over and over and over again. And on this particular day, sitting with my therapist, I wondered out loud to him, I wondered if maybe we get one chance at a big, full life, and maybe I'd used mine up. He looked at me and said something like, Denise, I was sitting right here across from you when it all started, and you were devastated. You are a different person now. And then he listed all the hard things that I had done. And he reminded me that this wasn't just a divorce, and it wasn't just a betrayal. This was 3 long, hard years of chaos and messes not of my making being dropped on my doorstep for me to sort through and clean up. Now, before I go on, I want you to understand something about Allie, my therapist. He doesn't coddle, and this man does not sugarcoat anything. He is a truth teller. And not once has he ever said anything to me just to make me feel better. So as I'm listening to him name the trauma and go through this laundry list of my triumphs, I dared believe that maybe that big, full life that I'd been trying so hard to build, maybe it was still ahead of me. That day, Allie gave me a writing assignment, and in that assignment, I was reminded of being 8 years old on my grandfather's farm.
For more information on Testify, visit testifyatx.com. We'll see you next time on The Marino Show.